Hey everyone. Before we begin on the stories, I just want to thank all of the subscribers who sent in their stories. And if you have your own story that you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to send it my way. You can send your story to my website at southerncannibal.com, or you can email it to me at southerncannibalstories@gmail.com. Also, really big thanks to Swamp Dweller for helping out on today's video. Be sure to show him some love down in the comments below. All that being said, let's begin. This is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. And what makes it worse is that had things gone down differently, I might not have been here to tell this story. Okay, so first things first. I'm a girl about 5'7" and around 130 pounds. This happened to me about 3 years ago when I was in my early 20s and still a student and living in a pretty safe area. Growing up, I had really loved martial arts, and having grown up in a pretty small rural town, I'd take what I could get. Karate? Fine. Judo? Sure. Kung Fu? Why not? Taekwondo? Sign me up. I really loved martial arts because it helped me to discipline my body and mind and also grow my confidence. It had been a few years since I moved out of my country's capital to study, and I'd kind of fallen off the martial arts wagon at that point, with college pretty much taking up most of my time. I should also mention that at the time I lived with my younger brother and our cat. We lived on the first floor right next to a military camp and a patch of forest which leads to a creek. On our back balcony, there was a circular metal ladder that would lead up to our balcony, and then the kitchen door, which of course we always kept under lock and key except when the cat wanted to go out. So we'd unlock the door and he would go down to the outdoor metal stairs to find his cat friends and play. I commuted to my college every day by walking about 30 minutes to a bus stop, then riding the bus for about an hour and then walking another 10 minutes until I made it to my campus. And then it was time to go home. I'd pretty much have to do the same thing over and over again, so as you can imagine, it was a very tiring thing. I would be out of the house pretty much every day from 10 in the morning until almost 10 at night, so by the time I'd come home, I'd be pretty knackered. I don't really believe in premonitions all that much, but I do believe in instinct, and for quite a while, I really felt like something was up with that patch of forest behind our apartment. I don't know how to explain it. I just felt watched. Maybe it was the blackness of that patch of forest that made me feel so uneasy because there wasn't a single light there, and the outdoor ladder looked like it descended into an abyss. You could take about 3 steps into that patch of forest and you'd be under complete cover of darkness. It made me feel weird because even though I couldn't see anything, I just knew something was up. Given I had no proof, but I just knew it. I was in class one Wednesday afternoon with my best friend at the time, and a professor came to pitch an internship to us. Internships aren't very well known in my country, so professors actually have to argue their case about why as students that we could really benefit from it. My best friend, who I'll call her Kay, was very interested, but when the professor listed off the requirements, she realized she couldn't apply as her GPA just really wasn't high enough. This led to Kay having a crying fit after the class was over, which led to a panic attack, and it got so bad that she had to call her boyfriend to come pick her up from campus. And since I really didn't want to leave her alone, I decided to stay with her until her boyfriend showed up and then got in his car with her. The conversation in the car was basically just me and her boyfriend really trying to console her and help cheer her up. I asked her if she'd like me to go over to her place with her so that we could all hang. But she said that it was okay and just didn't want to put me through the hassle of having to commute home the next day. She lives about a full hour away by car, so 2 hours away by public transport. So it was then decided that they would drop me off to my house and then they'd go to theirs. We get to my house around 7 p.m., which was a full 3 hours before I normally come home. I hug Kay, tell her to text me if she needs anything, and then thank her boyfriend. Then get out of the car. Really glad that I'll actually be home early for a change. I went in through the main entrance, climbed up the stairs to the first floor, and then put my key in the lock. I opened the door and called out my brother's name like I usually did, but got no response. The house was really dark except for one light in the room where the front door opened into, and it was eerily quiet. but I felt my stomach tie into a knot because even if I couldn't hear anything, I could just feel someone was there. And when my instincts talked, I always listen. I turned right into the hallway that leads into our rooms, and I then saw my brother's door then slam shut as soon as I got in the hallway. My brother's room is on the end of the hallway on the left, facing my own room, which is on the right of the hallway. My first initial thought was that maybe my brother had taken a shower and forgotten to get a towel, so maybe he was just making a run for it from the bathroom in embarrassment. But then I heard muffled whispers coming from his room. It sounded really hushed and pressing. I still had no reason to be afraid, but I was on high alert because I thought that my brother and his friends were planning on jumping out of his room and trying to scare me or something, and I definitely wasn't about to give them that satisfaction. So I then started to inch down the short hallway right through the darkness, and right before I knock on my brother's door, I start to take a look at my room. It was a total wreck. My mattress was off my bed, my clothes and my books were all over the floor, my jewelry box was empty and thrown on my bed, and all in all it looked like a damn tornado had gone through there. And the hushed whispers that I had heard in the next room sounded extremely pressing and anxious now that I was close, because though I had tried to tiptoe as silently as possible, my steps had been audible. That's when I finally realized what was happening, and I went ballistic. Right at that moment, I lost it. My fight or flight instinct totally kicked in, and it kicked fight into maximum overdrive. The words danger, thieves, and fight then hit me like a truck, and I threw my entire weight onto my brother's door, busting that door down so damn furiously that you'd think it owed me money. I saw no one in the room, but it was a freaking mess, and I knew what I had heard, so I ran to the balcony door. I ripped the curtain out of my way and went through the open balcony door just in time to catch one of the thieves right after he jumped off the balcony ledge. Looking back on it, he looked like a normal guy. Black hair, normal height, athletic build, but at the time he looked like a freaking monster to me. A vile and putrid home-invading piece of crap monster. I started to scream unintelligible things as I saw him stumble around, obviously having hurt his legs right before he got back on his feet and ran away. They were gone. I was safe, but then it hit me. Where the hell was my laptop? I ran into my room and completely tore the place apart trying to look for my laptop, but it was gone. I just started screaming and crying at this point. The unfairness, audacity, and all of the cowardness totally hit me like a steel toe to the stomach. I just started to scream and cry. I'm not rich by any means, and neither is my family. I had a pretty old laptop which was probably worth pennies secondhand, but I needed that laptop for my schoolwork, and without it, I really couldn't finish my semester. My laptop was lost, and so was I. Not to mention that I don't really have that many real-life friends, and at the time, the majority of my friends were online, so if I lost that laptop, I lost them too. I felt totally violated, dirty, and less than. I was afraid that I would throw up or pass out, or maybe even both. I was taking such rapid and deep panic breaths that my vision began to blur. In the most panicked and grief-stricken state that I've ever been in my life, lots of tears streaming down my face, I called my mother to tell her what had happened, and she told me to call the police. It took me almost a full minute on the phone with the operator telling her again and again where I lived, who I was, and what had happened, before she finally understood me and said that she'd send someone over. I started running around the house like a total lunatic, checking every door and lock in a frenzy, until I got to the kitchen and saw that a window had been broken. Without even thinking, I slammed it shut. Really stupid, I know, but I was by myself. At the time, I just wasn't really thinking that straight. My brother came home a few minutes later, and when he came in, he saw me panicked, crying my eyes out. He came to the bedrooms and saw all of the damage and told me to go sit in the living room and try and calm down. I did as he said and I tried to calm down, but I pretty much jumped at every sound and started crying worse, telling him that I was really sorry that I got home too late and that our laptops were gone. My brother had started to call me over to my room and showed me a pillowcase. It appeared to be full of something, and when we looked inside, we found both of our laptops, all of my jewelry, and my phone, as well as a few other things. They had been right in front of me that entire time, but I was just so messed up that it didn't even register. The police eventually came about an hour later and pretty much didn't do anything. So my brother and I took it to the police station to file a report on the incident. And since I had seen half of one of the culprit's faces, they had asked me to come in for an identification. They even sent someone over to dust for prints, but nothing ever actually came of it. The police had said since they didn't even have a backpack to put all of the loot in and resorted to using one of our pillowcases, they were almost 100% junkies. We did, however, have the outdoor metallic ladder ripped off of our kitchen balcony, much to my cat's displeasure since that's how they got in. We had also installed several motion detecting lights. For the next few months, I was constantly on edge, and every time I passed near some suspicious characters who would hang around near my usual bus stop, I would always feel this violent rage boil up inside of me, and I would start to catch myself looking for the man I had seen, ready to beat him within an inch of his life. But I never saw him or heard his creepy whisper partner again. My brother and I moved away from that apartment a few months later because I just never felt comfortable in that apartment again. I picked up kickboxing, and because it's made me stronger, it's also really helped in making me feel safe. And I also always carry a knife with me now. I still sometimes think back on that encounter and realize how stupid I was. Even if I know that busting in my brother's room like a lunatic is what initially scared them off, I also realize how bad it could have been. They could have had guns. They could have had knives. They could have had pepper spray or a chain or really anything. And there were two of them and only one of me. And if they had decided to gang up on me, even with the adrenaline having turned me into the Doom guy, I don't really know how much of a chance that I realistically stood against two men high on whatever they were on, who had been so desperate enough to break into an apartment and then stuff loot in a pillowcase. What I do know is that I probably still would have busted in there like Doom guy. So to the creepy cowardly bastards who dared to break into my apartment and tried to rob me and my brother and ended up traumatizing me so bad that I had to move, screw you both. I hope for your freaking sake that we never meet again because I've been kicking that sandbag for over 2 years now, and I always picture your face every single time.
A year ago, I was 28, living in a condo in southern Arizona. I am a single parent and have my 3 children and a dog, a Belgian Shepherd named Loki, living in this little quiet condo. This neighborhood that we lived in was actually quite nice and friendly. My children would play outside with neighbor kids on a daily basis. I didn't really have to watch them like a hawk out there. Plus, my neighbor had his garage open every day, all day, because he built race cars for a living, and watched the kids out there too as he was building. One fall night in 2016, I was doing my usual chores. Vacuuming, cleaning the rooms, washing clothes, etc. I wanted to do as much as I could before the kids got back from their grandparents' house the next morning. I have a door in my bedroom. That is a sliding glass door, and I usually leave it halfway open, so it'll be easier for me to go back and forth from the garage where the washing machine was, and for fresh air. Loki also loved it open because it was easy to access, to run back and forth inside and outside. He's a very obedient, smart, loyal family dog. Well, I needed to throw the trash away, and when Loki saw me getting the garbage bag, he knew I was about to head out to the alley, and he likes coming with me. So I went through my room, through my sliding glass door, and opened the garage to throw away the trash in the dumpster. When I was putting the dumpster's lid back down, I turned around and saw Loki. His eyes were fixed on the roof, and he was growling. I looked up to see what he was growling at, and I didn't see anything. Just assuming it was a cat because he absolutely despised cats. So I started walking back in the garage, and usually, I didn't have to say anything to Loki, he just followed. I was about to press the button where the garage door came down and realized Loki was still out in the alley. I called for him to come, but he didn't. He didn't even look my way. He was sitting, looking up, very still as if he were hunting something. "Loki, come!" I yelled. Then suddenly he jumped up and snarled and barked viciously towards the roof. At the same time he did, I heard thumps going across my roof. "What in the heck was that?" I yelled. What scared me the most was the way Loki reacted. I've only seen him like this maybe once before, and that is when I almost got robbed when I was stationed back in Washington at the time, years earlier. I quickly shut the garage door and went inside a little rattled. Loki, still a little wind up, kept pacing back and forth crying and growling. So I texted one of my neighbors who helped me a lot if he could please come to my house. Even though it was quite late, I didn't want to call the cops quite yet. And anyway, he was just 2 houses down from me. Les, can you please come and check around my house? I think someone's trying to get in. He happened to be up and actually called me a minute later, so I explained the situation to him. He told me to wait inside while he checked, so Les went up on the roof and checked everything up there. He didn't find anything, not so much as even trash up there. It's probably just cats, not to worry, but if you hear anything again, call me and I'll check again. I said thank you and apologized for the inconvenience. The next couple of days go by and I heard nothing. It was all quiet, so I went on thinking I was just being paranoid. The next morning I was brushing my daughter's hair for school and heard very loud footsteps across my roof. It startled my daughter and Loki went crazy again, so I got my old military machete from under my bed and ran out to the back with Loki. Nothing. I circled around the front and there was nothing. If my neighbors saw me, they probably thought I was crazy walking around the early morning hours with a machete in my hand. So I went inside to reassure my daughter that it was probably a cat. She told me, "No, Mom, it sounds like someone was running." I told her, "It's okay, baby. It's gone now." Later that day, when I came from work, I saw police cars down the street in an ambulance. It was my neighbor Colleen. She was getting loaded up into an ambulance. Colleen was an older, very sweet lady. I walked pretty fast to the other neighbors and asked what was going on. Someone had broken into her house while she was napping, and Colleen apparently startled the assailant, and the asshole pushed a fragile neighbor to the wall, breaking her hip. The guy escaped. Colleen was there on the ground until her daughter came to check on her just a little while ago. She got worried that her mother Colleen wasn't answering the phone, and thank God she came and checked on her. I was just in awe, just trying to wrap my head around what happened. Then the police were talking to each one of us, asking if we saw or heard anything suspicious lately. Then I realized, holy crap, I knew those footsteps were on my roof. As I thought to myself, so I told the officers immediately everything that I heard and saw, and how Loki reacted. So the police set up officers to patrol our neighborhood for about a week and nothing really happened. I had to tell my daughters what was going on. My son is still kind of young to understand, so he doesn't really understand what a bad person is. But I did my best to explain that a bad person was trying to take things from us, and he said to me, "Don't worry, Mama, I'll make you safe." So I explained to them they couldn't play out as freely as they were for a while, until things calmed down. 2 weeks passed, still a little on guard. It was late and I needed to do laundry, so I had my sliding glass door open for the fresh air, and so to be a bit easier for me to get in and out with loads of laundry. When I was getting my last load, I had the basket in my arms. I shut the door to the garage and was walking to my room. As I got under the porch, I took a step and then I heard a creak. For a minute, I paused and looked down, confused if I made that creak. I soon realized how stupid I was to even look down because my floor was made of concrete. Then I heard another creak. I slowly looked up and realized where it was coming from. It was coming from right above me on my porch roof. My heart sank. In my head, I was screaming profanities. I looked down because I saw movement, and out of nowhere Loki appeared, but he just sat at the doorway of my room. I very quietly motioned him, "Loki, come." At first he started wagging his tail as if we were going to play. Then Loki stepped out, and as soon as he stepped out, his fur on the back of his head raised in defense mode. Then he started growling. He then walked out from under the porch and turned. He then snarled and ran inside. As I was sliding the door closed, I yelled, "Loki, come!" in a demanding loud voice so he would listen. He came running inside. I locked the door immediately. I saw a shadowy figure jump from my roof onto the floor. My oldest daughter came in and asked what was going on, and I told her to get my phone and call 911 immediately. I told my other daughter to get her brother and barricade themselves in the bathroom. Take Loki with you, and you don't open the door for no one unless it's me or the police. They were crying and wanted me to come. "Baby, I can't go. It'll be okay, just go." Loki was foaming at the mouth and wanting to get this guy. I absolutely was terrified, shaking. I've been to war and seen things, but when my children were in the crossfire of this horror story, this was different. When I turned back to see where he literally was right in front of me outside the glass door glaring at me. He was wearing a hooded sweater and had a crowbar in his hand. I started to remember my machete was right next to my nightstand right beside me. I didn't want him to know I had it yet. If he tried breaking in, I wanted to give him a surprise of his life. He then jiggled the handle to my door to open it. I asked him what the hell he wanted. He said, "Look, you and your kids don't have to get hurt. Let me in and let me take your TVs." I was like, "Yeah, that's not going to happen, asshole. My husband is coming home right now." He replied with a grin, "You don't have a husband." My stomach dropped. He was rattling my door and yelling, "Let me in," then hit my door with the crowbar, but it didn't shatter. My kids were yelling, crying hysterically. They opened the door and let Loki out. Loki came sprinting into the door, enraged. "I'm going to kill that freaking dog, then your kids, then you." He started hitting the door harder and harder. I ran to get my machete and yelled for him to come on. Then a glorious sight. An officer jumped the fence and told him to put his weapon down. The guy turned to the officer and the officer tased him. 4 squad cars came. I went to go get my kids. I opened the door. They were all rattled and come running towards me, giving me tight hugs. He was charged and sent to prison. My kids are still going to therapy but are getting better. I'm doing whatever I can to help my kids cope with everything. Loki is still with us and we love him very much. Loki was a big part of saving our lives as much as the cops were. I hope I never see the assailant again, and if I ever do, I don't know if I could hold back on what I would physically do to him.
About 6 years ago, I was living with my husband's parents while we looked for a new house to buy. They lived in a really beautiful 2-storied house right on the beach in old Australia. The back of the house has a footpath, then there are some sand dunes with trees in the beach. It was about 6 p.m. on a Saturday and we were all home, which includes myself, my husband, and both of his parents and his sister. To give you a picture, if you stand at their front door, it looks right into the living room, and you can see right upstairs to the landing where their bedrooms are. Because it's summer in Australia, all of the doors and windows are open. I was upstairs on the computer and my husband was in the kitchen, which is out of view. His mom and sister were on the couch, which is in plain view of the doors, and his dad was upstairs in the bathroom. It was getting pretty dark, and that's when my husband's mom noticed a figure at the door. At least 6 feet tall and just standing there looking into the house. She called out hello, and the figure just continued looking into the house, then grabbed the door, trying to rattle it and trying to get it open. Originally just thinking that it was one of my husband's friends, she said to my husband that someone's at the door, and he started walking over to it. The person just continuously tried to open the door, and that's when we all realized that this wasn't anyone we knew. As soon as the person saw my husband, he bolted. I ran downstairs after hearing yelling and commotion, and my husband called out to his dad, who came downstairs as well. We all ran outside to try and look for the person, but we didn't see anyone. My husband's dad then ran upstairs and grabbed his gun, and that's when we then started hearing some noises in the garage. It sounded like he was on the roof, but nobody wanted to go into the garage as we didn't really know if he was armed or what he wanted. By the time my husband's dad finally came downstairs with the gun, the man was long gone. We noticed a car that was leaving the street pretty quickly, so we think that there was a getaway car and maybe more than one person. Since this happened, their house has had more attempted break-ins. The back door has been taken off its hinges, and the security gate has been tampered with and broken. I'd also like to add that their cars had been broken into as well. While this isn't the most scary story you've probably heard, it's absolutely frightening to see someone standing at your door trying to open it when they can clearly see that you're home. The scariest part of all of this is because they only saw 2 women, that's why they tried to do this. What would have happened if they would have broken in and there wouldn't have been any men home? I don't even want to think about it. For some reference, I'm about 5'1" or 5'2" and a female. To be completely honest, I come off as friendly, nice, and a bit timid, but I also have a side where I'm known to change into someone dead serious with anger, some hidden strength, and the potential to seriously hurt someone should they ever approach me in a threatening way. This somewhat scary side of me was once seen when a drunk acquaintance thought that it would be funny to try and pick a random fight with me, which resulted in me putting the guy in his place in an instant. Since then, I haven't really shown that side of me, until last year on a Friday, midday. To start the story, I was spending the weekend at my boyfriend's house while his parents were on vacation. He has 2 younger sisters, Raina age 9 and Sarah age 11. My boyfriend and I had walked from his house to go and pick the girls up after school, which was less than about a 5-minute walk. We did our usual routine whenever I was at his house, which consisted of him helping the girls with their homework while I cooked dinner. Then we all ate and relaxed, and then it was bedtime for the girls. 9 p.m. rolls around and I'm in the living room with my boyfriend. He's playing some video games while I'm reading when his phone rings. Our best friend Isaac was calling. It slipped my mind that almost every Friday, Isaac usually got off work around this time, and my boyfriend would usually drive him home or back to his house to hang out for a bit. So this was a Friday night where Isaac was coming over. My boyfriend soon left, and I was by myself now. The house was pretty dark except for the living room lamp where I was sitting down reading from before. A little while later, Raina walks up to me telling me that she can hear some heavy footsteps from outside her window. The girls' bedroom is located right at the front of the house. Mostly around the house there's these rocks, and if you happen to walk over there where they are, chances were you were probably going to make noises while the rocks moved. I followed Raina into the bedroom, waiting quietly, and listened. Almost immediately, I hear the heavy footsteps too. Someone was actually outside, and from what it sounded, they were trying to be quiet but were really sucking at it since the rocks were there. I quietly walked into the kitchen when I then see a figure approaching the back door. Very quietly, I walked to the kitchen where I could then see a figure then approaching the back door. The back door was locked and the windows aren't clear, so inside and out you can't really see who's there or what's really going on. Raina came up behind me to then let me know that there wasn't just one intruder, but 2. What? There's 2 of them? What am I going to do? I said. Don't worry, Vivian. I already called Big Brother and the police, Raina said. Atta girl. Why didn't I think of that sooner? I thought stupidly. We headed to the girls' room to wake up Sarah, and I quickly explained to her to head into the parents' bedroom closet and then hide, just to be safe. As we were walking out of the bedroom, a really big crashing sound then erupted. The window had completely shattered, and there was a very skinny man. He was maybe around the same height as me, now climbing through. I shoved the girls in, then told them to run to the room. The man fell and stumbled to get back up, using the other wall as a support. In that moment, the scary side of me that I mentioned earlier was beginning to surface. I impulsively ran right towards the man, slamming him into the wall with all of my strength. I started to punch him and then grabbed his head, repeatedly slamming him until the 3rd time his head actually went right through the wall. He tried to grab me, but after dodging his reach, I then moved forward and then tackled him really hard to the floor, then throwing a final hard punch. It's pretty safe to say that he was basically out of it. I ran out and slammed the door, then grabbed a bat from the hallway closet, and then I waited. For some reason, I really wasn't as scared as I should have been. A couple of moments later, I heard the second intruder yell out loudly from the bedroom.
Crap, dude. What the hell happened to you?
I hid in the bathroom next to the bedroom when the door then swung open and the man came through. It seemed that while I was dealing with the first guy, he had tried breaking in from the back door with no success. Then he walked back to the front where the girl's bedroom was.
Hey Dick, where are you? Come on out.
The man shouted. He passes by the bathroom heading straight towards the master bedroom where Raina and Sarah were. On cue, I quietly come up behind him, raised the bat in the air, and then brought it down really hard on the man.
You little whore!
He started to shout in pain. When I tried to hit the man again, he quickly takes the bat from me, but I then kicked him as hard as I could right in the groin. The man fell over on his knees in pain as I reached over for the bat. Instead, however, he then got a hold of my right arm.
You got some guts, little girl, but you can't mess me up that easily.
I let out a really angry yell as my left fist collided with the man's face. In another impulsive, maybe stupid move, I jumped on his back and managed to put him in a chokehold as I was able to bring my arms together before he reacted. We started to struggle a bit. I could feel him slowly getting up and my back being slammed into the wall. Quickly as it was, car headlights shined through the windows. It was my boyfriend and his friend. They burst through the front door and then instantly charged right at the man. I fell down and saw the guys beating the man who stood no chance. The police showed up moments later and were able to take care of the situation. We checked on the girls, gave the police our statements, and they arrested the men. Through all of the struggle with the crazy man, I only received a bad headache and a little bit of pain in my hands, but that was it. We ended up informing my boyfriend's parents about what happened. I guess the two men randomly chose a house to break into, and when they happened to see my boyfriend leaving, they must have just assumed no one was home. How wrong they were. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. And again, big thanks to Swamp Dweller for helping me out. But again guys, if you have your own scary story that you'd like to share on the channel, you can send it to my website at southerncannibal.com or by email at southerncannibalstories@gmail.com. It's stories like yours that keeps the channel going. All that being said though, I hope you have an awesome day, and until the next one, remember,